the Everything But Politics podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything But Politics podcast. Been super fired up for this episode. We got Dr. Jack Wolfson here with us, cardiologist, cholesterol expert, and the natural heart doctor. Dr. Wolfson, thanks for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me on. Excited to talk some health and wellness and bring it to all the listeners.
Absolutely. So as mentioned before we began recording, we're very aligned with you and many much of what you say. I want to start with heart health, not heart health right now at this moment in 2026, but heart health 100 years ago in the United States. What has changed since then? And here we are in 2026. What would it be? What would it have been like in 1926?
Yeah, it's heart disease was much less known in 1926. It's really kind of essentially since then. So you kind of picked a good year, to highlight as time goes on, the conversation about heart disease gets more and more. And back in the early 1900s, people didn't live quite as long. There was poor sanitation, poor access in big cities to good food. And then also, there wasn't access to, sunshine, especially when you live in big cities. So infectious disease was pretty rampant. People didn't live quite as long. But in addition, there wasn't as much heart disease because whatever food there was real food. Fast forward to today, we've got a lot of fake food. And that's one factor that increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, why it's so much more prevalent today than it was 100 years ago. And if you look at the medical textbooks, it's barely even discussed 100 years ago. And the other factor that would be monumentally more than 1926 would be the amount of toxins. So like plastic wasn't invented and now plastic is everywhere. You take a breath in, the amount of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides that we're exposed to, just the sheer number of chemicals, again, are monumentally more. So that, that's going to change things from 100 years ago regarding, heart disease is the number one killer in the world.
So you get 1920s and then the Depression comes. Did anything change in regards to health then?
Well, I think that, probably food scarcity would be a factor in the 1930s. So if you have this depression and you have a lot of people that are just taking in less calories, then there's going to be less disease. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is that people are starving and they're not getting the good nutrients that they should be getting. But that undoubtedly would be a factor because presumably even in the 1900s, people are overeating. They certainly had access to sugar back then. But now in the 1930s, if maybe some of those things, and again, we were talking about real food. There was not this processed food, the partially hydrogenated oils that really came into being in the 1940s and 50s. And then, of course, all the lies vilifying saturated fat, all to the benefits of the candy makers, for example. So if you're a candy maker in my hometown of Chicago, which there was a lot of candy manufacturing going on there, or, Hershey, Pennsylvania, stuff like that. If normally you make your chocolate bar out of coconut oil, for example, so coconut oil, raw cacao, sugar, coconut oil is expensive. You got to import it. It's not from the United States. You got to import it from the islands and it's very expensive. So now what do? You vilify coconut oil and saturated fat. And then you say, hey, we got this new fat, which is partially hydrogenated soybean oil. You absolutely mow down the states of where you guys are at in Indiana and Illinois. You mow down Iowa and you just plant soy everywhere. And now you got partially hydrogenated soybean oil. And now, of course, you got candy consumers and people using, fake fats and they die.
Yeah. Now, Doc, if I came to your clinic and wanted to get my heart checked done, From like a beginner standpoint, what is going on? I'm assuming you take my blood work, but then what are you looking at to determine if I have a healthy heart or a unhealthy heart?
Well, what most doctors do is what's called what I call the 1970s testing. Like when my father was a cardiologist in the 1970s starting out, they do the basics: total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, triglycerides. Now, they'll look at your blood sugar, look at your kidneys, what's called a basic metabolic panel. But fast forward to 2026, we're doing the most comprehensive blood, urine, stool testing, home testing to look for environmental toxins such as water damage, mold, and bacteria. I like doing ultrasounds when necessary. I don't like doing coronary artery calcium scans. One thing about you guys, because you guys are obviously, a lot younger than I am. There's new guidelines that were released by the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association that are totally owned by the pharmaceutical companies. That's very well known.
Sure.
And the new guidelines are basically check every child, check every young adult. By the time you're 18, you should have been checked for cholesterol and LDL. And if your LDL is above 160, they're giving the doctors carte blanche to, and really enforcing the guidelines to get these people on pharmaceuticals, which will just, markedly increase the number of people who are taking statin drugs. And that will be very unwise for the individual and for society. So yeah, we're doing super advanced testing. A lot of the times in the younger demographic, a lot of people are, they'll experience chest pains and they'll get brushed off. They'll experience palpitations, racing heart feelings, skips and flips and thuds. Maybe a little bit more so common in young women compared to young men. But heart disease is starting younger and younger. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. And something you mentioned that I want to get back into is statins. But prior to that, I want to take a bigger step back. If we were doing this call with 20 something Dr. Wolfson, like what was that guy like? What was the difference he wanted to make in the medical space?
21-year-old Jack Wolfson was starting off medical school, osteopathic medical school, following in his father's footsteps. And I love the idea of all the surgeries and the procedures and dealing with, the sickest of the sick. I was super excited about pharmaceuticals. Couldn't wait to write my first prescription, which I would do at the age of 23. 25, I would graduate osteopathic school, and then I would do 3 years of internal medicine and then 3 years of cardiology. And all through that, I mean, listen, I'm just a Midwestern kid, and I'm eating deep dish pizza and Italian beef sandwiches and Chicago hot dogs, and big sports fan at the time. So you're going to a lot of sports bars and having a lot of drinks. My father was a drinker. I became a drinker. There's no sob story to my father's drinking. He was like the life of the party, the joke teller, storyteller. The sob story of my father's drinking is that he died at 63. So once I met the woman who would become my wife, I was 33 years old. I was already 2 years into practice in the biggest group in the state of Arizona as a hospital-based cardiologist. I was the chairman of internal medicine, chairman of cardiology, director of cardiac rehabilitation. And I meet this young woman who just opened up my eyes to real health and wellness. She's a doctor of chiropractic, DC. And she just blew my mind open. It was just like, if you guys, remember the movie The Matrix and just being pulled out of the Matrix, that's really was that epiphany moment, and it changed my life. And I'm very, very beyond grateful to God for introducing us and for my wife to really opening up my eyes.
This episode of the Everything But Politics podcast is sponsored by Brick House Coffee Co.
For all my dark coffee lovers out there, Brick House Coffee has got you covered. Their black is a rich, bold profile for those who enjoy a bold cup with notes of dark chocolate. Now back to the show.
What were some of the things that she opened your eyes to?
Really just kind of like just the lies of medicine, the lack of root cause. Like, why do people get sick? We really walk around and think that heart disease is from a deficiency of aspirin or not enough statins or not enough stents. We think cancer is from a lack of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
We never talk about why someone's sick. We never talk about nutrition. We never talk about sunshine and sleep and physical activity. Okay, eat less saturated fat, exercise more. Okay, great, thanks. We don't talk about toxins. We don't talk about your dentistry, your teeth, oral pharynx. We don't talk about stress. These
Yeah.
are just ubiquitous risk factors that are not discussed. And again, she opened up my eyes to all these various things. And ultimately, we take my father to the Mayo Clinic where he got a diagnosis of something called progressive supranuclear palsy. And Mayo Clinic says, we've got no idea why your father's sick and dying. We have no treatment for him, and he'll be dead on average within 3 years. And then I meet this 29-year-old chiropractor who tells me all the reasons why my father's sick and dying. And again, because of the way he ate, lived, and, his mindset. And she's like, if you want to avoid the same or similar or something, you're going to live differently. And I'm like, well, I don't want to die like that. So I changed. But it was a big epiphany moment. I mean, I was
Yeah.
making a ton of money in the cardiology world, biggest group in the state of Arizona, a lot of prestige, really just kind of like rocking the entire foundation of everything I've ever been taught.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, we
So
live in a very health conscious environment now. I feel like now more than ever. Whereas when you were growing up, it was very easy to manipulate the public and to tell them what was right was actually wrong and vice versa. Like the food pyramid was backwards, right? We learned that not so long ago. So, how do you feel now, knowing what you know now, wishing you knew what you know now back then? How do you look back and think like we've been lied to? How does that make you feel doing what you do?
yeah, it definitely makes me pretty angry because I would have liked
Mhm.
to have got on the health and wellness path a lot earlier. And I'm not saying I would have listened if somebody kind of came into my life at that time and kind of give me this new religion. But, to your point, uh, back in the 1970s, how would anyone get information aside from your doctor?
Mhm.
You'd read, Reader's Digest, or you'd read something that, Time Magazine, it comes out with an article in 1984 says eggs are bad or whatever it may be, butter is bad. It comes up with this stuff. Uh, it was really, you go to the doctor's office and the doctor was the dictator. It was a dictatorship, relationship.
Mhm.
And it should be a partnership, but it was a dictatorship, my way or the highway, do this or get out, and no explanation necessary.
Yeah.
And you had nowhere to turn. Like if the doctor said, hey, I recommend this surgery or this drug, you pretty much were going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and now, of course, the difference is you have all the information in the entire world
Yeah.
on your
It-
cell phone.
it's
All the
amazing.
information you would ever need. And not to mention, with AI, you can go onto your favorite AI platform and ask the questions.
Mhm.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
55 years old. I have normal blood markers, normal inflammation. I've never had a cardiac event. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm not overweight. I get good quality sleep. I get high quality sunshine. My relationships are good. I keep my toxin exposure. I drink out of, glass bottles.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
What is my 5-year annual heart attack risk? And that thing, in within 5 seconds, going to come back and spit out a number.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
It's
know? And then
amazing.
and then ultimately I would say, well, what is the benefit of me if I take statin drugs versus not? And it's going to come
Totally.
back and say no benefit.
So, Dr. Wolfson, we have you're clearly an expert. We have a slight understanding of this world. So I want to start the get a little deeper with what's a better health metric for people to understand where they stand? Is it blood pressure, or cholesterol?
Okay. The answer is blood pressure specifically to that question.
Okay.
But I like to use this analogy with everybody, and then I'll answer what I think is the single best test.
Okay.
Is that let's think about a tree. And the tree has these branches on the top, and it's got leaves. So the branches and the leaves, I like to say, are symptoms: low energy, fatigue, problem sleeping, weight gain, weight loss, stomach pain, skin issues, gut issues, brain fog,
Yes.
headaches. Uh, those can also be things like high blood pressure, diabetes. Well, below the surface are the roots, and that's the root cause, right? That's what I call violations of the 100-year heart method, or what we say are the eat well, the live well, the think well. When you get too much bad stuff, not enough good stuff, that's all root cause. So that could be too many deep dish pizzas, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
And the trunk of the tree in between are the metrics. So what are the metrics? Blood pressure is a metric. Cholesterol is a metric. Inflammation, oxidative stress are metrics. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different metrics or markers that we can check. Intracellular levels of, vitamin D, K2, omega-3s. We can look at markers of toxicity, metals, mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium. We can look at all those things. It's kind of like if you think about, let's think about your podcast here. What are
Okay.
your metrics? How many viewers, are you getting? Show was a success. Show was not a success. Do better at promotion. Those are the metrics of what you get. You look at your bank statement, every day. How's my bank account doing? That's a metric. In business, your business, your profit and loss statements, your balance sheets. So you know what I'm saying? Your check engine light. These are all
Yeah.
just different things. And the more things we can check, the better. To answer your question, there's an at-home urine test that we have at Natural Heart Doctor. We call it the heart attack risk test. And it's a urine test, and it's a marker for oxidative stress. You don't need a doctor's order. You don't need to go to a lab. There's no blood draw necessary. You get the kit, you urinate in a cup, you send it into the company, you get the results. And that's a good kind of snapshot at not necessarily root cause, but it's a good metric of what your status is. Because if you've got a lot of what's called oxidative stress, you better figure out why.
Okay. So that let's stay on the tree example. What happens when you go down towards the roots?
So when you go down towards the roots, I mean, that's where all the exciting stuff happens. That's where you learn to avoid the bad stuff and get more good stuff. And, there's so much sickness in the world. And it's like, if we don't do that, we're not giving our bodies the best chance. Let me tell you guys something else. What if each one of you had one cell phone for your entire life? You could never get a new cell phone. You only got one. How would you protect that phone?
Oh, very, very, very well.
Yeah, you take care of it. Just like your
Right? I
body.
mean, it'd be like sitting in a safe under your bed, and you're like, oh, I wonder if my brother, is calling me, whatever. I wonder if my girlfriend's calling me, whatever. And then you'd go, and then you put it back in the bubble wrap and put it back like in its box it came in,
Oh, yeah.
and put it safely away. What if you only had one car,
Mhm. Same
or
energy. Yeah.
whatever it may be? Why you would take care of it so well? Why don't we take care of our body in the same way? We have one body.
Amen.
Now, the difference is that our Creator gave us a body that can withstand so much abuse in so many cases. And your cell phone is not made like the human body is, quite obviously.
Well
But,
said.
that's kind of my example of trying to motivate and say, take care of the one gift that you've been given, because there's no replacements for it.
So what does your diet look like now that you know what you didn't know 20 years ago? Like, what meat do you consume? We're big red meat eaters,
Yeah.
and that's a big, I feel like, topic of discussion when it comes to heart health. Is red meat good for you or is it bad for you?
Yeah, so I mean, my diet compared to when I was in the Matrix is totally different. I have no understanding whatsoever of what it meant to, eat organically, to eat free-range grass-fed meats, to eat wild seafood, to eat organic fruits and vegetables. A lot of processed food, a lot of fake food, a lot of artificial food. And, I mean, I grew up as a carb junkie like anybody else.
Mhm.
Lots of cereal, lots of Fruit Loops and, uh, um, yeah, whatever, Frosted Flakes, Cocoa Pebbles, Raisinets at the movie theater, or Snow Caps. That was my jam.
Yep.
My brother was always Twizzlers. I was always some chocolate. He was always that. And my sister, she always got like sweet tarts or something. Um, so to your thing about the thing about meat, guys, I am extreme. I am the extreme. I know you guys don't care, but I'm wearing organic cotton underwear. We take the lifestyle very, very seriously because number one, I don't want to die. And also, number one, I don't want my family to die. My wife doesn't want to die. We don't want our kids to die. And that's why, we do what we do. So there's no scenario, guys, where the four of us go to one of the famous steakhouses in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, and have some fat, grain-fed steak loaded up on hormones that came from one of the factory farms. There's no scenario. No scenario. And if you guys want to read an awesome book, it's called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair from the early 1900s from the Chicago stockyards, where he's taught. You want to know why people are sick in the early 1900s? Go read that book, The Jungle. That is,
Okay.
and it's a classic by Upton Sinclair. Classic book, guys. So again, meat and especially organs. So we prefer to eat bison, elk. We have an organ product called Kickstart My Heart, which is unvaccinated, field harvested, prairie grass fed elk, liver, heart, kidney. The organs are just loaded with vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fats, and so is meat. When you eat quality meat, it's a great strategy. The second, it's the second best thing to eating seafood. Seafood's number one food.
So I've in past interviews, I've heard you talk about how bullish you are on seafood. My only thing with seafood is, the ocean is incredibly polluted. How do you go about that factor?
All right, guys. I don't know if the world is getting warmer or colder. I don't know that. Okay. I do know the world's polluted. I do know that we are destroying the world with pollution. That's obvious. Polar bears have hundreds of chemicals. Newborn babies in their cord blood, hundreds of chemicals. So the soil is polluted. The oceans are polluted.
Yes.
The question really is that, okay, number one, we have to eat. Number two, do the benefits of a certain food outweigh the risks? Do nutrients that are in certain foods help mitigate against the toxins in there? And the answer with seafood is all those particular things. When we tested our product, which is called wild salmon roe, which are the wild salmon roe plus the
Yes.
placenta of the salmon, we call that wild salmon roe, there was 0 bisphenol A. So if there's 0 bisphenol A, which is a main hormonal disruptor and a chemical compound found in plastic, if we're testing at 0, then there's likely any significant levels of microplastics in that particular food. Now, the flesh of the fish, the muscle of the fish may contain some. I think it's way overblown. And the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids, people who eat the most amount of seafood, according to the medical literature, in dozens and dozens of studies, have the lowest risk of everything. So we can talk about Fukushima. We can talk about toxins. The reality is that seafood eaters live the longest and live the best.
Interesting. Okay.
What kind of seafood outside of salmon do you like to eat?
Yeah, so wild salmon, I love sardines, sardines in glass. You can get a really good brand called Ortiz, Ortiz. That's on Amazon in a glass bottle, comes packed in olive oil. That's pretty good stuff. Mackerel, anchovy. There's some canned tunas that say that they're low in mercury. I'm not a big tuna eater because there are other fish. So I'm like, well, if there is some levels of metals, why not go with a fish that's going to be a safer fish? But if we're out on a fishing trip and we catch tuna, I will be eating it raw right there on
Sure.
the boat. Like, yeah, like not
Yeah.
even.
Yeah,
The
no
bad
brainer.
primal.
Yeah, and
So-
then the shellfish, guys. You know, clams, oysters, shrimp,
Oh,
lobster, crab, octopus. I mean, they're great foods. And the omega-3 fatty acid is the main component of the cell membrane. Every one of our cells, right? It's surrounded by this fence called the cell membrane. It is the brain of the cell, not the nucleus and the DNA. The brain of the cell is that fence. And if your fence is a good quality fence, just like the fence around your house or the protection wherever you live, your security, you're going to be safe. If you don't have a fence, if your fence is broken down, now you got people coming in who you don't want.
Yeah. So, Dr. Wolfson, if me as a 26-year-old male, if I were to get blood work done with you, what are some things you'd hope to see?
Well, I would hope to see that your inflammation and oxidative stress are low. You see, normally when we see a lot of younger people who come in, they don't have a lot of high risk markers normally, as far as abnormal cholesterol, high cholesterol, abnormal lipids, abnormal lipid ratios. They don't have a lot of inflammation or oxidative stress. But what they do have is that they've got the toxins. So eventually, when your body runs out of antioxidants, when your body and your bucket just start to get full of poison and we get older, it starts to give out. And that's where you see abnormal lipid ratios. That's when you see inflammation, oxidative stress. That's when you see some of these abnormalities, and you start to see the formation of coronary artery disease. You start to see blood pressure creeping up. You start to see thickening of the heart muscle on an ultrasound. So, the best time to get healthy was, 20 years ago. The next best time is today, right?
Yeah, true. Cholesterol. I feel like my entire life been taught that cholesterol is bad for you. High cholesterol is a bad thing. Is that true or false, and why?
So every animal species on Earth has cholesterol. Every animal species has LDL. So if all animals have it, why would they call it bad? You can only say that it's bad because it's pharmaceutical speak. It's how pharmaceuticals want to sell us drugs. The pharmaceutical companies are obviously some of the best marketing companies in the world.
Yeah.
You got the banks, you got the military, you got the pharmaceutical companies. And it's just pure money. Pure money, guys.
Well, and
So-
doctor, I was gonna say you're like an outlier. How do you find doctors like who aren't gonna lie to you and not prescribe you? Oh, your cholesterol's high. Here's some prescriptions.
It's tough. It's
Yeah.
really tough. It's really tough. But the beautiful thing is, like, a lot of times too, you can look on the internet.
Yep.
You can use, again, your favorite AI and start to ask questions. I mean, if it's an emergency, you go to the emergency room, right? You go to
Yeah.
Munster Hospital. Hey, I just I just fell off my mountain bike and my legs, I think, is broken. I mean, like, that's a great place to be. You don't go to Chat GPT, like, oh, how should we handle it? So you do that, but it's not easy to get the truth sometimes. But there are a lot more doctors like me that are coming out, and as the public demands more from their doctors, that's where you see the change happening. There's a lot of pediatricians who kick people out of their practice for not behaving, for questioning, for not following the guidelines. But a lot of those pediatricians are finding out that the public is pissed and they're not going to come see them. They're going to seek help somewhere else. And now when you start hurting the pediatrician's bottom line, the pediatricians wake up and like, we'll be a little bit more lenient. We'll be a little bit, more conversational, because that's how we're going to drive things. They're not going to change. They're not going to have epiphany moments to any grand scale. So yeah, we got to bootstrap this, on our own. Also answering again, like the cholesterol, again, cholesterol is part of all those cell membranes that we talked about. Cholesterol makes up our hormones. Is testosterone important, guys? Yeah, it's pretty important. Where does testosterone come from? Cholesterol. Where does vitamin D come from? Cholesterol. Where does our digestion come from? Where we make cholesterol in our liver. We put that into our bile, into the gallbladder, squeeze it on top of our food for emulsification and digestion of fats. Cholesterol makes up our aldosterone or cortisol for energy. It's a pretty darn important molecule that we cannot live without. But
Yes.
it became pretty convenient to vilify it in the 1950s. They look under a microscope, they look at plaque, they see cholesterol, and they're like, huh, I wonder if we can lower this. And if we lower it, I wonder if we can sell something that can lower it. And, that's how you had the birth of the original pharmaceuticals. Eventually, that would lead to statin drug production and statin drugs being the number one selling pharmaceutical of all time. And it's all lies.
Now, how has your perspective on cholesterol changed? Did you always think what you think now? Or when you were 20, 21, did you think and believe what they told you?
Yeah, no, I definitely believe what they told me. Cholesterol is bad. Got to lower it down. High blood pressure is a problem. You got to lower it down. Again, high blood pressure is a signal. It's a warning. It's a check engine light by the car. And you can either put a sticker, or a piece of tape over the check engine light, and the guys, you're like, hey, Evan, what happened to your, check engine light? And like, oh, nothing's all good. I got this duct tape. I put it over the top and we're fine. We're rolling. Next thing you know, the car breaks down. So, that's really what blood pressure is. It's just another sign signal metric. So therefore the answer is not to pharmaceuticalize the number and lower it down and then pat ourselves in the back, what we did. The answer is to figure out why. Why is the blood pressure high? And the reason why for everything, too much bad stuff, not enough good stuff. So whenever you're talking to anybody about anything, anywhere, you're at holiday dinner, you're out, whatever, and someone's complaining about XYZ. It's from too much bad stuff, not enough good stuff.
So simple.
Whether or not you choose to say something to somebody, I mean, again, that's up to you. Some woman's behind you, at Starbucks. God forbid you're actually in Starbucks, but if you're there, and they're like, oh, my heart's skipping and flipping, and my doctor, says I got to take this beta blocker, and I'm feeling like crap, from it, and I don't know what to do, Like there are millions of people suffering like that. They're
Yes.
suffering at the hands of the mainstream. And yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sad because they believe what they're told and they don't even think that they're being lied to. And it's just unfortunate that people are being misled like that.
It's just, people are being misled and manipulated all over, as you guys already know. But there is this thing that is called the internet. And
Yes.
now,
Nobody knows this anymore.
right, now 2.0, with AI. And we've got the ability just to look up the truth on our own, and like, okay, so I think you just said that if I don't take a statin drug, I'm going to have a heart attack and die. Like if I don't do that. Yet, one second, I'm going to ask Chat GPT or Claude or Gemini. I'm going to ask one of those guys what they think.
Let's do it.
And then 5 seconds later, 5 seconds later, it gives you a different answer. Like, well, it's saying that it can reduce my risk of having a heart attack from 1% to 0.98% as a 26-year-old male. That doesn't sound like take this or I'm going to die.
No, it doesn't.
Not at all.
And then what do you think that doctor is going to do? I mean, this has to be happening right now. Hey, listen, we found this cancer in you and we're recommending the chemotherapy. Okay, cool. What's the benefit? Oh, well, the benefit is you can, live longer. Okay, great. Can I get some actual numbers? Hold on a second. I'm just going to ask, Gemini and see what they say.
Yeah.
Gemini says, it's going to add an extra 3 days to my life. I'm not going to take that. Thank you. And Gemini also said that if I do take it, that you put 10 grand in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
But now I'm pissed. Now I'm pissed. Now I'm walking out in the waiting room and I'm throwing shit around, you know?
What's up, guys? One podcast, one song every week. Podcast on Mondays, music on Fridays. Check it out.
Well, Dr. Wolf, let's take a dive deeper into this psyop. So 1950s, the modern medicine world, whatever you want to call it, claimed that cholesterol is bad. So let's go all in on statins. From there, that kind of is the next operation within this matrix. What are statins and what do they do physically to the human body?
Yeah, it's a great question. So statins were discovered in 1976, and it
Okay.
really came off the backbone of a mold mycotoxin called citrinin. And that's something that can be found in a supplement called red yeast rice, which I'm against. I don't use that particular supplement. Because it behaves so similar to a statin. So what the statin does is that it inhibits an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase. Long name. And the HMG-CoA reductase, again, blocks this enzyme. And the purpose of the enzyme is to turn X into Y. It's a protein in the body that makes, other proteins and makes things function. Now, when you block that enzyme, you block the production of cholesterol. So cholesterol goes down. Cholesterol is housed in LDLs. So when you have lower cholesterol, you don't need as many LDLs, so you have less LDLs. Here's what happens. The other things that are downstream from this blocking it are things like CoQ10, which are critical for mitochondrial function, cellular energy. Also in that category are things like dolicol. And dolicol is a very important molecule found in the brain, in the midbrain, and blocking it with statins leads to lower levels of dolicol. And there is data about statin drugs increasing the risk of Parkinson's. And my father was on a statin drug as well. And undoubtedly his Parkinson's-like illness was contributed. Also, alcohol played a factor, for my father as well. So I no longer really drink outside of like rare occasions. Other things, things like prenylated proteins, also vitamin K function is inhibited by statin drugs. So there's a lot of different things that are problematic about the use of statin drugs and the side effects. A lot of, when you block CoQ10, you are going to have a lot of muscle aches, muscle pains, muscle inflammation. Statin drugs are known to increase blood sugar, as well. And it's just sad. It's just sad that millions and millions of people take it. And, they just, people are afraid. People are afraid. They don't want to have a heart attack. They don't want to die.
Yeah,
They don't want to
of
have a stroke.
course.
It's very
I-
motivational.
Is there anything in nature that replicates what statins do?
So red yeast rice, and in particular, the mold mycotoxin is called citrinin. So mold releases toxins. What's the purpose of mold? Mold exists to break down dead organic material. A tree falls over, it dies, or, it's chopped down. Eventually, you start to see mold or, what looks like mushrooms, which is mold growing on the tree. It's feasting on the tree. And it also, again, releases toxins in order to enhance breakdown, but also as signals to other things. It also, mold mycotoxins destroy bacteria, kill bacteria. That's how penicillin was discovered. Penicillin, the antibiotic, is a mold mycotoxin that is released from mold and kills bacteria. And there's a lot of examples of where medicine encapsulates mold mycotoxins to, quote unquote, treat disease.
Yes.
But, so that's going to be the main, most well-known inhibitor of that enzyme is that. And that's, again, the supplement red yeast rice. Sometimes you can find it in certain products there or not.
Got it.
Now, the main thing you want to do, though, is that if you have a lot of LDL particles, if you have a lot of small, dense dangerous LDL particles. You can have large particles that are good, small dense ones are not good. They're very oxidized or they're damaged. So you want to enhance the removal of the LDL particles by the liver and also by the periphery. And that's where supplements like berberine, curcumin, resveratrol, green tea extract, quercetin, but really berberine has some really good data. And it's kind of funny when people kind of admonish me, make fun of me, call me a snake oil salesman. And I'm like, there's over 9,000 studies in pubmed.gov about berberine. Over 9,000 studies. Quercetin, over 20,000 studies. So, yeah, there's plenty of research going on with some of the natural stuff, but the natural stuff doesn't make people money.
Correct. So let's say I had been taking statins for a decade, and then I discover your work, other people's work, and I stop. Let's go cold turkey. Within the next couple of days or weeks, what's going to be happening to me internally as well as from a mood perspective, how I'm feeling?
Well, statins never make anybody feel better. That's for sure.
Okay.
So invariably removing them is likely to make you feel better. Like Prozac could make some people feel better. I don't recommend Prozac, but it could make people feel better, less depressed, for example. But statins, nobody says, oh, I have more energy on statin drugs. I've got better libido and better erections on statins. Thank you, doctor. No one says, oh, I'm getting much better workouts at the gym now that I'm on a statin. So when you stop it, invariably, you're likely to feel better. Your cholesterol numbers will go up. But what we're trying to find is the perfect level for each and every one of us. And with these new guidelines, they're just trying to hammer down your levels as low as possible. And I think it's a really bad strategy. Certainly for the long term. And it's not addressing root cause. Like I said, it's not about how do you reduce your annual heart attack risk, by, a fraction of a percentage. It's how do you reduce it to zero? Yeah. And oh, by the way, while having your best brain and best body and best everything for the long term.
And we'll see if this gets flagged or not. All of us are unvaccinated. Talk to us about how much the vaccine has caused all these heart problems now.
Well, again, as far as being flagged, I'm hoping that we're in more of a freedom time.
I think so. I do think so.
I think we're free.
I think we're free-ish for the moment. We'll see. We'll day by day on this one. But I think all any of us are asking is, number one, the freedom of choice over my body.
Yes.
Sure. And of course, this is very popular in the, I don't want to say pro-abortion, but let's just say, again, pro-women's rights to have an abortion.
Sure. Yes.
So my body, my choice. Well, where were all these women and men? My body, my choice. Well, why did that not apply to COVID?
Exactly.
Good point.
So we always want our freedom. And we always want our freedom to discuss these things and freedom of speech. Now, Zuckerberg can say, hey, it's my platform, so I get to decide. Okay, that's true. That's true. Okay. But again, let there be freedom for other platforms to say differently. But the whole freedom thing, I think, is absolutely critical for us to be able to say, hey, listen, you do whatever you want. I think it's a bad choice. I'll do whatever I want on my side and go from there. I saw a lot of vax injury. I did not see a lot of COVID, whatever COVID is or was. I really didn't see a lot personally. And I will say this. I think that there was a lot of bravado amongst my former colleagues in the hospitals, machismo, Look at me. I'm in the trenches. I'm a first responder. And then of course there was a lot of fake diagnoses because hospitals received a lot of reimbursement for dealing with, quote unquote, COVID patients.
Yes.
So, Trump almost, I know you guys are in everything but politics. And I'm not, I personally, I don't like any politician. So, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Trump version 1 knew that the whole thing was bogus. He knew, is my opinion.
Yes.
He knew that that the business of America is business. He knew to let this thing, hey, listen, you want to stay home and shelter, you want to wear a mask, go ahead. But we're not shutting down anything because that would be catastrophic. Social isolation, bad. Staying at home for the economy, bad. But I think at the end of the day, some people were in his ear and he caved.
Mm.
And that's also how it became political. Like, that's
Yes.
also how it became political. Where it was like, if you were on the right, yeah, there were some freedom people over there, but if you were on the left, forget about it.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate that it got politicized. But of course, you can always take a step back and say, okay, those who are really in control, whoever they are.
Yes.
And people will make fun of us and they'll be like, oh, you're always talking about they, I saw a meme some time ago, and it was in quotations. It said they, a global conspiracy corporation, but I mean, sometimes you got to look at what happens in society and say, this really is good versus evil. There are some evil people that are pulling the strings, and maybe more demonic and non-human than we can even, consider. But I don't want to get too crazy kooky. I also, I mean, it's just like, let's have the freedom to ask these questions. Why can't we discuss this stuff? Why would you guys have to we really got to be careful about what we say here. Like, is this 1930s Nazi Germany? Like, what? I mean, are we in communist Russia where we can't say anything? We can't talk about anything? Like, seriously? These are violations of human rights, our God-given rights.
Well, and Dr. Wolfson, in addition to that, when you look a couple of years down the road and even decades down the road, where do you see vax injuries?
Well, I will say this. I think that the world is very, very interesting at the moment, and to prognosticate where things are going to be, years down the road, I was probably 15, 16 when I read 1984.
Yeah,
And
same in high school. Yeah.
Yes. And you read books like that. You read books like The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451. And these are really lessons of where things are likely headed. So Orwell was a little bit off on his timing. But listen, if there's 70 plus vaccinations, whatever it is, like it's 18 different vaccines and 70 plus, there's a lot that's never been studied versus placebo. That's without a doubt. I mean, like, we have no data regarding that. Most of the vaccines do not have randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trials. And if they do, they're very short-term. So the data is very scant. So for people to flippantly say that vaccines, or as I call them, quaxines, don't cause XYZ injury, there really is not nearly enough data to support that. But these are bully tactics. They use the pejoratives like quack, like snake oil salesman, grifter. I get a lot of grifter, but I'm afraid of nothing, guys. I am afraid of nothing.
Well,
I'm
when you
not.
take care of yourself like that, why would you be?
Well, I mean, listen, the world is full of some bad people, and sometimes good people are taken out by bad people. But
Okay.
you can stay in line, you can keep your mouth shut, you can walk around with your mask on, you can say, I got to do this for my job. You can do all that stuff,
Well,
and that.
Doc, Dr. Wolfson, for those listening that reluctantly took the vaccine and are now, wish they didn't, what are some precautions they could take, to just kind of maximize their health?
It's pretty much it's going to be the same company line: eat well, live well, think well for everybody. Eat the right foods, avoid the wrong foods. Eat real organic food. Like, let's start
Yeah.
with that.
Yes.
Get high quality sleep. Get high quality sunshine, which you don't get from your basement in Munster, Indiana.
All these lights
know?
shining on it.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong on that one.
like you guys need to go sell real estate in the Caribbean or in Costa Rica. Like that's where real health and longevity happens. When I spoke of the truth about cancer in 2016 in front of thousands of people that are live and hundreds of thousands around the world, I said you cannot get healthy in the same environment where you got sick. Like, you gotta change it up.
Yeah.
It may
That's a
mean
good one.
moving. It may mean changing up your food environment, your mindset environment. Mindset, stress, anger, fear, worry, which they sell to us at every moment. Social isolation. These things are deadly.
Deadly.
These things are deadly, deadly, deadly. And, again, so it's like you got to, so whether you got the shot or you didn't, I would also say, again, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Next time hopefully you make a better decision. Obviously, I didn't get injected. My children have never been injected with anything at any time, neither has my wife or her 3 siblings. We know a lot of people. And right now there's a lot of talk about this rash going around the country. And the whole thing is a joke. It's a sham. And the only people who are going to get sick are people who are already sick. Oh, little Timmy in California, he's on chemotherapy. And if he gets, the rash, he's going to die, I feel horrible for little Timmy, but can we examine why little Timmy got cancer? Can we examine, what violations of eat well, live well, think well led to that?
Well, Dr. Wolfson, just for some clarification, I personally I'm not familiar with this rash. What is the rash that's going around?
I'm talking about measles.
Oh. I didn't realize
So-
that. Is that happening all throughout the states?
Measles is definitely a thing where a lot of people are talking about measles. And measles is a fever and a rash that everybody used to get, and a couple people died. Who were, again, we need to look at the sickly people. And if you're sick and you don't have a good immune system, you should probably stay home until your immune system gets better. But don't ask me to light myself on fire to keep you warm. I'm not going to light my children on fire, allegedly keep another child warm. I'm just not. My duty as a dad, as a father, as a husband is to protect my family.
Above all, absolutely.
And that's it, man. That's how we're rolling. But again, if you look at the media on this stuff, they run with this. The anti-vaxxers, measles outbreaks.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, I would point to, there was a TV show when I was a kid. It was called The Brady Bunch, and the Brady Bunch had an episode, the 1969 measles episode. The whole Brady Bunch gets the measles, and and they're all having a good time. And then of course people are like, oh, I usually go to the Brady Bunch for my health advice. It's just a time capsule where you're looking at 1969. Like, they're not really worried about getting the measles. So when did it become this like public health crisis where we need to, vaccinate everybody for it and inject our children with poison? Not my kids.
No.
Not my kids.
Dr. Wolfson, what is a common practice in hospitals that we wouldn't believe?
Well, first of all, the food they give is absolute poison, so you can't
Garbage.
eat hospital food. The hospital, the experience is they're trying to get you out as quickly as possible while ordering the most amount of tests possible. So it's kind of like that triumvirate. Again, God bless the men and women who work in emergency rooms and
Yeah.
trauma centers. I bag on the doctors, pretty well. But emergency room trauma, go there. But for the treatment of chronic disease, they got nothing. Diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, cancer. They got nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. And for those listening that, they want to get a better understanding of this world and their health and really have a grasp on their well-being, what are some outlets or podcasts or books or other forms of information that you'd send them to?
Well, I have a podcast called The Natural Heart Doctor Show. My website. I can't recommend too many other people.
Okay.
And outside of myself, my wife's company is called wildmamas.com. And that's also her, social media handle. You can find her, Heather Wolfson, at Wild Mamas. It's like there's a lot of good health people, but most of them get something wrong. So I don't like them. And I don't like to support them or promote them. So it's tough. I wish I had some good answers, there for you. So I can't really say there's good health authorities. I think individually you can more go so for different products. That maybe people are selling and kind of, cobblestoning it together. But the reality is too, is that just be your own doctor, really, use the internet, use AI, and, ask the right questions and you'll get the answers that you're looking for.
Do you supplement?
The only supplements I take are the organs and the wild salmon roe. I also take something called emu oil. And that's pretty much all that I'm doing right now. There's I use a product called Shilajit tar, which is, decayed plant matter from the Himalayan mountains. That's like my mineral complex of what we use. I spend a lot of time outside. We spend a lot of time in Costa Rica, just living outside. We go to sleep on time. I used to go to sleep at, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, back in the day. And now I go to sleep as soon after sundown as I can, and in the wintertime, it's tough. I mean, it means going to sleep at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, but, I also wake up at 4 o'clock. So I get a full day.
Yeah.
And that's the healthiest way to live.
How do you feel about creatine?
I'm not a fan of creatine, and I love bashing it too because I get a lot of, hate mail about it. Everybody loves creatine and like, oh, there's so many studies on creatine. I'm like, it's a synthetic lab-made powder. I'm just not going to take it,
Okay.
Why would I take creatine when I can eat meat? Why would I, if I get unvaccinated elk, liver, heart, kidney, why wouldn't I just, do that? Why wouldn't I just eat eggs?
So,
Why wouldn't
I'm
I consume raw dairy?
I agree. I'm very conscious about what I put in my body, and for the longest time, I never took supplements. And recently, over the past year, I've taken creatine and electrolytes only. Oh, and collagen. What are your thoughts on electrolytes? You just said your thoughts on creatine and collagen, electrolytes and collagen.
So electrolytes, again, I like that Shilajit tar. Take a look at that. It's SHILAJIT. It comes from the Himalayan mountains and it's decayed plant matter. And research shows that there's 84 different mineral compounds that are in that. It has a very smoky, peaty taste. And again, it's real food. It's from nature. Creatine powder is not. Electrolyte powders are not. A lot of them are sweetened with non-nutritive sweeteners, which I think are all garbage. Okay. And then as it regards, so you say creatine, you said the electrolytes, and then you said the collagen. So, again, collagen, why wouldn't I just do bone broth?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I just do, get a whole salmon, eat the flesh, and make a broth out of the bones.
Okay. Interesting.
Take a chicken, take a whole chicken, boil it for 45 minutes. Strip off all the meat, throw the skin and the carcass back in, and make a broth out of that.
Okay.
Do
Yeah,
you
that sounds
think
good.
that your collagen powder compares to that?
I do not. No.
There is no way. So, yeah.
Do you recommend no supplements at all?
The only supplements that we really do are food first supplements, like I said. For people who don't want to eat the organs, maybe people can't get the roe. We do have a couple supplements. So, for example, if you have high blood pressure and you're looking for some natural solutions because you just can't get to where you need to go. So that's where we got a product called Vessel Support, which is synthetic, L-arginine, citrulline, taurine, amino acids with grapeseed extract. Evidence-based, it works. We have a product called Heartbeat Powder, which is organic beetroot powder with organic carrot powder, organic spinach powder. So that's food, it's just freeze-dried. We have a product called Optilipid, like I talked about, berberine, resveratrol, curcumin, quercetin, ginger, etc. It's all plant-based. Comes from a lab. It's manufactured by us, for us by a company called Biotics Research out of Rosenberg, Texas. Two brothers, $100+ million business, been in business for 50+ years. I've been to the factory. I've been to the machinery where they test the products that come in. How do you know if your beetroot powder is not soybean flour with red number 40 dye? They test for that. They test for the metals. They test for the mold, test for contaminants. So it's synthetic stuff lasts.
Yeah.
So I don't know, so as far as, creatine, do I think it's necessarily the worst thing? I just don't take it and I don't recommend it because I don't think people need it. But do I think it's like as evil or as nefarious as statins? No, I'm not saying that.
No.
Uh,
Okay. Thank you for that.
Dr. Wolfson, we've covered a lot. Final thing I want to ask you about is blood work. I haven't had my blood work done in a couple of years. How important is that? And how frequently should I be getting my blood work done, if at all?
Again, it's just a metric. It's just a matter of how often you check your gas, tank or your oil tank or your business numbers. I think that the metrics matter because they can be the warning lights. Like you want the warning light before you run out of gas. You want the warning signals from doing blood, urine, stool before something happens. So wouldn't you want to know what your levels of plastic are, bisphenol A are, phthalates are, parabens are, what your metal levels are, what your mold mycotoxins are? Because you want that warning because, let me say this, which I think is also a really good soundbite. Again, healthy people don't have heart attacks. Healthy people don't die of the measles. They don't get cancer. Sick people get cancer. Sick people have heart attacks. So how do you prevent yourself from being a sick person? You eat well, live well, think well. You test, don't guess. You react to the test results and improve the test results. And if you improve the test results, now you're on track for longevity, vitality, and wellness.
How often do you get your blood done?
I personally do testing about every 3 to 4 months. And my numbers invariably look good. And sometimes if they don't, it's a kick in the rear end. You're like, oh, maybe I've been having too much sugar or too much fruit. But mostly what I'm looking for is I'm looking for changes that could indicate toxin exposure. Like, did something happen in my environment that now I'm getting more toxins coming in? Now, that may be what's coming in from the air, maybe some change in food, some change in mold or something in my environment. But in general, we're pretty diligent about everything we do, so my numbers stay pretty rock solid.
When was the last time you ate fast food?
Yeah, never. I mean, honestly, it was probably 2005. And you're talking to a guy who I would say I had fast food like just about every day. Just about every day. Arby's, McDonald's, Burger
Arby's.
King. What was the place I used to go to? Oh, Jack in the Box for their two tacos for 99. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, like that's how I grew up. Dairy Queen. Like I said, the hot dogs, the pizza. I don't really miss any of those foods whatsoever, and certainly not near enough to compromise my health.
And at this point in time, any restaurants you recommend in either Chicago or Phoenix, Scottsdale area?
Well, in Scottsdale, there's definitely some places. So Scottsdale, you've got places like the Ends, which is really good. You've got Lure and Buck and Ryder. Those are some pretty good seafood places. True Food is okay in a pinch. We mostly do our own cooking at home, so it's kind of tough. There's a place called Sapiens Paleo Kitchen in Chicago. I'm really not familiar because I haven't really spent much time there recently, but I do know that you'll have to go to some of these more farm to table craft type places that do exist in Chicago. You just got to do your homework. Wherever we're traveling to, I look for where is the natural grocery store? Where are the farm to table restaurants? Looking on the internet, using AI, calling up the restaurants. What do you use for oils? What do you cook your food in? Do you use nonstick Teflon pans? Is the meat, free range, grass fed, grass finished? Like those kind of things.
Yes.
And if it's not, I'm not going there. Like I'm not going to eat that. Vegas has some good restaurants that one could go to. California tends to have a lot of good options in certain places as well. But it's not easy, guys. It's not easy. You gotta, and the beautiful thing is, listen, we all work hard for our money. And I'm going to spend my money in places where I want to spend it and that deserve it. And I want to support those restaurants that are doing it right.
Awesome.
Amen.
Well, Dr. Wolfson, I can promise you have 3 new fans and followers right here. Love your message. Love what you stand for. And for those listening, want to keep up with you and your work, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, come over to Natural Heart Doctor. That's our website. Natural_heart_doctor is Instagram. I had about 500,000 followers on TikTok before they kicked me off.
Wow.
So they're not really Freedom Town, but hey, whatever, what are you going to do? Facebook, we're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on, what else? YouTube. I've got a YouTube, YouTube Shorts, all that kind of stuff. Just using this opportunity to get the message out there as much as possible. And I appreciate you guys. It's so fantastic to speak, to your generation. And I've got an 18-year-old. He's down at a permaculture retreat right now down in Costa Rica.
Nice.
And it's like, hey man, what are you going to do with your life? And wouldn't it be cool to know how to farm and grow your own food and harvest your water and take care of your animals and really survive off the land? I think that's going to be a pretty important skill over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I think as we have more conversations like this, we're closer and closer to getting involved in that life. So
Listen,
appreciate you.
anything I can do to help you guys email me. We'll talk in the future. We're always looking for, for like-minded people to help get the message out there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you guys come down to Costa Rica. I'm telling you, you're not going to come back. You'll come back and visit. You got your family, you got your friends and stuff like that. That's okay. You can go back, in June, September. After that, man, no more winters. Our ancestors, guys, came from the equator. They spent the day outside all day, every day. When Yeshua was walking around Earth 2,000 years ago, he's walking around outside and he's basically wearing a loincloth all day. What is the purpose of our skin? Our skin is a solar panel built to collect light.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go catch the last of this.
Yep,
Get
we're
our
gonna
circadian rhythms as in check as they could be here in Munster, Indiana. Dr. Wolfson, thank you for your time, your energy,
Thank you.
and all your wisdom. We
Keep
appreciate
spreading
you.
that good word.
Thanks, guys.